The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. They're performing, explaining, justifying, seeking validation through volume. But the person who says less, the one who speaks only when their words carry weight, that person commands something louder voices can never touch: respect. Not because they're intimidating, not because they're rude, but because they've learned what most people never will, that words are currency, and the more you spend them, the less they're worth. This video will reveal why talking less makes you more respected, more influential, and more dangerous than any amount of charisma or eloquence ever could. Because in a world drowning in noise, silence has become the rarest form of power. You're not here because you want to talk more. You're here because you've already sensed it: the power in restraint, the leverage in listening, the authority in measured speech. Most people are terrified of silence. They fill every gap with words, explanations, stories, anything to avoid the discomfort of saying nothing. But you're different. You've noticed that the people who talk the most are often the ones listened to the least. That the person asking questions holds more power than the one giving answers. That the leader who speaks rarely is the one everyone waits to hear from. This isn't common knowledge. This is the silent language of power, the psychological principles that separate those who command respect from those who beg for it. And you're about to master it.
Drop one word in the comments that describes how people treat you when you stay silent in a conversation. One word, no context. Let's see what reveals itself. Principle 1, the scarcity of speech. Here's the first truth. Respect follows scarcity. When you talk constantly, your words become background noise, predictable, forgettable, free. But when you speak rarely, every word carries weight. People lean in, they wait, they remember what you said because you don't say much. This is the law of supply and demand applied to communication. Economists understand this. The more abundant something is, the less valuable it becomes. The scarcer it is, the more people want it. Your words operate on the same principle. Machiavelli wrote that a prince should be slow to speak and quick to listen, because those who speak too much reveal their hand before the game is played. Silence is strategic scarcity. Think about the people you respect most. How often do they dominate conversations? How frequently do they explain themselves? Rarely. Because they've learned that every unnecessary word is a leak of power. When you talk less, you create a vacuum. And human psychology abhors a vacuum. People rush to fill it with attention, curiosity, respect. Here's how it plays out. In a meeting, everyone's throwing out ideas, competing for attention. You stay quiet. You observe. You absorb. Then, when the noise dies down, you speak once, precisely, with insight they missed because they were too busy performing. Suddenly, everyone's listening, not because you raised your voice, but because your silence made your words rare. Here's the application. Start tracking how much you speak. Not to become mute, but to become selective. Before you speak, ask, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said now? If the answer to any of those is no, stay silent. You're not being passive, you're being strategic. But here's the warning. People will try to fill your silence with assumptions. They'll project onto you. They'll guess what you're thinking. They'll work harder to impress you. Let them. Because the moment you over-explain yourself, you've given away the leverage your silence created.
Principle 2. The power of selective vulnerability. Here's where it gets nuanced. Talking less doesn't mean revealing nothing. It means revealing strategically. Most people dump their entire autobiography on anyone who'll listen. They overshare, over-explain, over-justify. And in doing so, they become predictable, understood, controllable. But the person who shares rarely, who offers glimpses of depth without full disclosure, that person becomes magnetic. Because humans are wired for completion. We want to solve puzzles, understand mysteries, fill in gaps. When you talk less, you become the gap they can't fill. Sun Tzu said, mystify, mislead, and surprise the enemy. Your silence is mystery. Your rare speech is the surprise, and the combination is leverage. Here's the pattern. Someone asks about your weekend. Most people launch into a full narrative, every detail, every thought, every moment. You say, it was productive. That's it. Now they're curious. What were you working on? Why won't you elaborate? You've created intrigue without effort. Or someone asks your opinion on a controversial topic. Most people take the bait, explaining, defending, justifying their position. You say, I'm still forming my thoughts on that. Now you're the thoughtful one, the strategic one, the one who doesn't shoot from the hip. Here's the application. Be generous with presence, stingy with details. Show up, listen, engage, but don't give everything away. Your full story, your complete thoughts, your detailed experiences, those are valuable. Reserve them for people who've earned access to them. For everyone else, you're a book with chapters locked behind earned trust. But here's the twist. This only works if your silence comes from strength, not fear. If you're quiet because you're insecure, people sense it. But if you're quiet because you're discerning, because you know your words have value and you're choosing when to spend them, that's power.
Principle 3. Silence as social dominance. This one is counterintuitive but true. The person who can tolerate silence in a social setting dominates it. Most people panic in silence. A conversation lulls, and they scramble to fill it. Jokes, observations, questions, anything to avoid the discomfort. But you let it sit. And in doing so, you've just established dominance without saying a word. Here's why. Social animals, and humans are social animals, interpret comfort in silence as confidence. The alpha in any group doesn't need constant validation through speech. It exists calmly, and the group adjusts around it. You're doing the same thing. Nietzsche wrote, "The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die." As well, the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind. But the person who doesn't need to constantly broadcast their opinions, who's comfortable in the space between words, that person has shed the need for external validation entirely. Here's how it plays out. You're in a group conversation. Someone makes a statement. Everyone else rushes to agree, add to it, or counter it. You just nod slightly, say nothing. The conversation continues, but now, periodically, people glance at you, checking if you agree, wondering what you're thinking. You've become the reference point without speaking. Or you're in a negotiation. The other person makes an offer. Most people immediately respond, accepting, countering, explaining why it doesn't work. You just look at them. Silence. The discomfort builds. They start talking, justifying, negotiating against themselves. You haven't said a word, and you've already won leverage. Here's the application. Practice being the last person to speak. In meetings, in social settings, in any group dynamic. Let others exhaust their thoughts, compete for airtime, repeat themselves. Then, when the room settles, you speak once, with clarity, with weight. Everyone listens because you made them wait. But here's the danger. Silence as dominance only works if you're genuinely comfortable in it. If you're silent because you're anxious or unsure, people read it as weakness. But if you're silent because you're observing, calculating, choosing your moment, that's dominance. And everyone in the room feels it, even if they can't name it.
Principle 4. The listener's advantage. Here's what people miss. Listening is not passive. Listening is information warfare. When you talk less and listen more, you're not being polite. You're gathering intelligence. Every time someone speaks, they're revealing what they value, what they fear, what they need, where they're vulnerable. And you're cataloging all of it while they think you're just being a good listener. Machiavelli advised princes to speak little and listen much, because knowledge is power, and silence is how you acquire it. Here's the tactical advantage. In any conversation, the person talking is giving away information. The person listening is collecting it. When someone rambles about their weekend, their job, their relationships, they're not just making small talk. They're telling you what matters to them, what stresses them, what motivates them, what you could use if you ever needed leverage. And because you're quiet, they keep talking, filling the space you've left open. Here's a concrete example. A colleague complains about their workload. Most people either commiserate or offer advice. You just listen, nod, ask one clarifying question. What's the hardest part for you? Now they're revealing even more. What they overwhelms them, what they avoid, what they need help with. You haven't given anything away, but you've learned exactly how they operate, what they struggle with, and how you could help them, or outmaneuver them if needed. Here's the application. Become the person people confide in, not by talking about yourself, but by creating space for them to talk about themselves. Ask open questions. Stay quiet. Let them fill the void. They'll walk away feeling like you're the best conversationalist they've ever met, when really, they did 90% of the talking. And you've gained information they'll never get from you. But here's the warning. People will start to notice. They'll realize they know very little about you, despite spending time with you. Some will respect it. Others will probe harder, asking direct questions, trying to extract information. That's the test. Hold your ground. You don't owe anyone your full story just because they're curious. Your privacy is your power, and they're confirming it by how hard they try to breach it.
Principle 5. Speech as commitment. Here's a principle most people never consider. Every time you speak, you're creating a record, a position you'll be held to, a statement that can be used against you, a commitment that limits your flexibility. The more you talk, the more you've committed yourself to specific positions, specific stories, specific versions of events. And that's a trap. Because circumstances change, information changes, your interests change. But your words? Those are locked in. Sun Tzu wrote, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." Your plans can't be dark if you've already announced them. Your strategy can't be impenetrable if you've already explained it. Here's how this plays out. Someone asks what you're working on. Most people launch into full detail, their goals, their timeline, their strategy. Now they're locked in. If they pivot, they look inconsistent. If they fail, everyone knows. But you say, "A few things, still figuring out the details." Now you have flexibility. You can change direction without explaining yourself. You can fail privately. You can succeed surprisingly. Or in a conflict, someone tries to bait you into a position. So you're saying X is wrong? Most people take the bait. They commit to a stance. Now they're locked in to defending it. You say, "I didn't say that." You've avoided the trap. You haven't committed to anything they can use against you later. Here's the application. Stop announcing your plans. Stop defending positions you don't need to defend. Stop giving people ammunition by over-explaining yourself. The less you say, the less can be used against you. The more ambiguous you remain, the more you can adapt without appearing inconsistent. But here's the twist. This requires you to be comfortable with ambiguity. Most people over-explain because they need others to understand them, approve of them, validate them. You don't. You're comfortable being misunderstood if it means maintaining strategic flexibility. That's not dishonesty. That's mastery.
Principle 6. The filter of wisdom. Here's a truth that takes years to learn. Most of what you want to say doesn't need to be said.
Your opinion on politics? Probably not necessary in most contexts. Your critique of someone's decision? Likely to create enemies more than insight. Your full emotional reaction to a situation? Rarely productive. The person who talks less has learned to filter, not because they have nothing to say, but because they've developed the wisdom to know what's worth saying. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Most people operate backwards. They say everything that comes to mind and hope it lands. You operate forwards. You filter everything through purpose, truth, and necessity before it leaves your mouth. Here's what that looks like. Someone shares a terrible idea in a meeting. Most people either pile on with criticism or stay silent in cowardice. You ask one clarifying question that exposes the flaw without attacking the person. How would that work if X happens? Now they're realizing the problem themselves. You haven't embarrassed them. You haven't made an enemy. But you've steered the conversation through a single strategic question. Or someone gossips to you about a mutual friend. Most people either participate or awkwardly deflect. You say, "I haven't experienced that with them." Neutral, non-committal, but you've declined to participate without creating tension. Here's the application. Before you speak, ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it doesn't pass at least 2 out of 3, stay silent. You're not suppressing yourself. You're refining yourself. You're becoming someone whose words matter because they're rare, considered, and intentional. But here's the warning. This level of verbal discipline is rare. Most people will interpret your restraint as disinterest, coldness, or aloofness. Let them. Because the people who matter, the strategic, the observant, the powerful, will recognize exactly what you're doing, and they'll respect you for it.
Principle 6, the filter of wisdom. Here's a truth that takes years to learn. Most of what you want to say doesn't need to be said. Your opinion on politics? Probably not necessary in most contexts. Your critique of someone's decision? Likely to create enemies more than insight. Your full emotional reaction to a situation? Rarely productive. The person who talks less has learned to filter, not because they have nothing to say, but because they've developed the wisdom to know what's worth saying. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Most people operate backwards. They say everything that comes to mind and hope it lands. You operate forwards. You filter everything through purpose, truth, and necessity before it leaves your mouth. Here's what that looks like. Someone shares a terrible idea in a meeting. Most people either pile on with criticism or stay silent in cowardice. You ask one clarifying question that exposes the flaw without attacking the person. How would that work if X happens? Now they're realizing the problem themselves. You haven't embarrassed them. You haven't made an enemy, but you've steered the conversation through a single strategic question. Or someone gossips to you about a mutual friend. Most people either participate or awkwardly deflect. You say, "I haven't experienced that with them." Neutral, non-committal, but you've declined to participate without creating tension. Here's the application. Before you speak, ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it doesn't pass at least 2 out of 3, stay silent. You're not suppressing yourself, you're refining yourself. You're becoming someone whose words matter because they're rare, considered, and intentional. But here's the warning. This level of verbal discipline is rare. Most people will interpret your restraint as disinterest, coldness, or aloofness. Let them. Because the people who matter, the strategic, the observant, the powerful, will recognize exactly what you're doing, and they'll respect you for it.
Principle 7. The absence that creates presence. Here's something paradoxical but true. You become more present by being verbally absent. When you talk less, people notice you more. Not because you're drawing attention to yourself, but because you're creating contrast. In a world where everyone's fighting to be heard, the person who doesn't fight stands out. It's like a room full of loud music suddenly going silent. The silence itself becomes the loudest thing. Machiavelli observed that the prince who speaks rarely is remembered more than the one who speaks constantly, because rarity creates memorability. Here's the dynamic. 10 people in a conversation, all talking over each other. You're sitting there, observing. Someone directly asks your opinion. Now everyone stops. They want to hear what the quiet one thinks. You speak for 30 seconds, clearly, concisely, then stop. The conversation continues, but now you've made an impact, not through volume or persistence, but through strategic absence followed by precise presence. You've become the signal in the noise. Or in a social setting, everyone's performing, telling stories, making jokes, competing for laughs. You're not competing. You're just there, engaged but not desperate. And by the end of the night, people remember you, not because of what you said, but because of your calm presence while everyone else was performing. Here's the application. Stop trying to be memorable through speech. Be memorable through selective silence. Show up, pay attention, engage when it matters, but don't fill every gap. Don't compete for airtime. Don't perform for validation. Your presence should speak louder than your words. But here's the danger. Some people will interpret your quiet presence as disinterest. They'll feel like you're not engaged, like you don't care. That's their insecurity projecting. Because truly confident people recognize that deep engagement doesn't require constant verbal confirmation. You're present, you're listening, you're observing. That's more engagement than most people's performative chatter ever achieves. Principle 8. Words as weapons. Use them sparingly. Here's a brutal truth. Words can hurt. Words can destroy. Words can be used against you. And the more you use them, the more ammunition you've given your enemies. The person who talks constantly gives away their positions, their vulnerabilities, their emotional triggers. The person who talks rarely keeps their weapons holstered, and that makes them more dangerous. Because when they do speak, it's a precision strike. Sun Tzu wrote, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." But I'd add, appear silent when you're observing, and speak only when it's decisive. Here's how this operates in reality. You're in a conflict with someone. They're venting, accusing, justifying. Most people match that energy, defending, counter-accusing, explaining. You stay quiet. Let them exhaust themselves. Then when they're done, you respond with one clear, unemotional statement that addresses the core issue without attacking them. Now they have nothing to fight against. You haven't given them ammunition. You haven't escalated. You've de-weaponized the situation through restraint. Or someone's trying to manipulate you. They're using guilt, pressure, emotional appeals. Most people defend, explain, justify, and in doing so, give the manipulator more to work with. You say, "I've made my decision." That's it. No explanation, no defense, no room for further manipulation. They can't argue with that. There's nothing to grab onto. Your silence has made you invulnerable. Here's the application. Treat your words like ammunition. Don't fire constantly. Don't waste rounds on targets that don't matter. Save your verbal firepower for moments that count. And when you do speak, make it count. Make it final. But here's the warning. This level of verbal restraint can be lonely, because most relationships are built on constant verbal exchange. When you stop providing that, some relationships will fade. That's not a loss, that's a filter. The people who stay are the ones who value substance over noise, and those are the only relationships worth having.
Principle 9. Silence as leadership. Here's something leaders understand that followers don't. You don't lead by talking. You lead by listening, observing, and speaking only when it shifts the direction. The leader who talks constantly is managing, not leading. They're explaining, convincing, persuading. But the leader who speaks rarely, who listens to the room, synthesizes everything, and then offers the defining insight, that's the one people follow. Machiavelli wrote that the greatest princes were those who said little in council, but whose few words redirected entire kingdoms. Because leadership isn't about having the most words, it's about having the right words at the right time. Here's how it works. In a team meeting, everyone's debating a decision. Voices are raised, opinions are colliding. You're silent. You're listening. You're tracking the real issue underneath the noise. Then, when the debate peaks, you speak once. The question isn't whether we do this, it's whether we're ready to handle the consequences when we do. Now, the entire conversation shifts. You didn't dominate the airtime, you dominated the direction. That's leadership. Or, in a crisis, everyone's panicking, offering solutions, talking over each other. You're quiet, calm, observing. Then you say, "Here's what we're going to do," and lay out the plan in 3 clear steps.
everyone stops. They follow. Not because you convinced them, but because your silence gave your words authority. Here's the application. If you want to lead, stop trying to be the loudest voice in the room. Be the quietest until it matters. Listen to everyone. Synthesize everything. Then speak once with clarity that cuts through the noise. People don't follow the person who talks the most. They follow the person whose words matter most. And the only way to make your words matter is to use them rarely. But here's the danger. Some will interpret your quiet leadership as passivity. They'll try to fill the vacuum. They'll talk louder, assuming that volume equals authority. Let them. Because eventually, the room will realize the loudest voice isn't the one they're actually following. It's the quiet one they keep glancing at for confirmation. That's when you know you've mastered it.
Principle 10. The final truth. Respect is earned in silence, not speech. Here's the culmination of everything we've covered. Respect isn't given to those who demand it through words. It's given to those who earn it through presence, restraint, and strategic speech. The person who talks constantly is seeking respect through performance. The person who talks rarely is commanding respect through self-control. And self-control is the highest form of power. Because anyone can speak, anyone can argue, anyone can fill a room with words. But to stay silent when every instinct is screaming at you to defend yourself, explain yourself, justify yourself, that's mastery. Nietzsche wrote, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." The person who can't control their tongue is being commanded by emotion, ego, insecurity. The person who controls their speech is commanding themselves, and by extension, the respect of everyone watching. Here's the final pattern. You're in a situation where you're being criticized, questioned, or tested. Every fiber of your being wants to defend, explain, justify. But you don't. You stay calm. You stay quiet. You let the criticism sit. Then, if it's worth addressing, you respond with one measured sentence that reframes the entire interaction. Or you say nothing at all. And in that moment, you've demonstrated something most people never will. You're not controlled by the need to be understood, validated, or approved of. You're comfortable being misunderstood if it means maintaining your power. That's the ultimate respect. Not respect born from being liked, respect born from being unshakable. Here's the application. From this moment forward, audit your speech. Notice how often you're talking to be heard versus talking to add value. Notice how often you're explaining yourself versus letting your actions speak. Notice how often you're seeking approval through words versus earning respect through silence. Then adjust. Start removing unnecessary words, unnecessary explanations, unnecessary performances. Not to become cold or aloof, but to become rare. To become the person whose words carry weight because they don't waste them. To become the person who commands respect, not by demanding it, but by embodying the self-control that makes them worthy of it. But here's the final warning. This path is lonely at first, because you'll stop participating in the noise that most relationships are built on. You'll stop feeding the need for constant verbal validation that most people crave.
Some relationships will fade. Some people will pull away. Some will accuse you of being distant or cold. That's the price. But what you gain is worth infinitely more. Respect from people who recognize real power when they see it. Influence in rooms where your rare words shift entire directions. And freedom from the exhausting performance of constant speech. And the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you control your words, not the other way around.
They say empty barrels make the most noise. But here's what they don't say. Full barrels need no announcement. You can hear the difference between someone who's desperate to be heard and someone who's worth hearing. The desperate one talks constantly, explains endlessly, seeks validation through volume. The valuable one speaks rarely, observes constantly, commands attention through scarcity. And the room always knows the difference, not consciously, but instinctively, because humans are wired to respect power, and silence is one of the oldest forms of power that exists. It's the power of self-control, the power of mystery, the power of strategic restraint, and it can't be faked. You either possess it or you don't. You either trust yourself enough to stay quiet, or you fill every gap with words to prove you're present. Most people will spend their entire lives talking their way into irrelevance, explaining themselves into weakness, performing themselves into exhaustion. But you've learned something rare, that the most powerful thing you can do in most situations is nothing. Say nothing, defend nothing, explain nothing. Just be, observe, absorb. And when the moment demands it, when your words can shift the direction, solve the problem, or end the debate, you speak once, with clarity, with precision, with finality. And everyone listens, not because you're loud, but because you're rare. Not because you demand respect, but because you've earned it through the quiet discipline of restraint. So here's the final truth, whispered in the dark. The world is full of people trying to be heard, but the people who matter are the ones worth listening to. And you become worth listening to the moment you stop needing to be heard. That's when you've mastered it. That's when respect finds you without you seeking it. That's when power becomes your natural state, not through dominance, but through the quiet confidence of someone who knows their words are valuable because they're rare. So, talk less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have too much worth to waste on noise. The silence isn't empty, it's full of power. And the moment you realize that, you'll never go back.